I was 31 years old when I found the letter in my mother's locked desk drawer. The envelope was yellowed with age, addressed to me, postmarked 12 years earlier. My hands shook as I read the words. "Congratulations, Russell. We are pleased to offer you admission to our incoming freshman class." It was from Stanford University. My mother had told me I was rejected everywhere I applied. She said I wasn't college material, that I should be grateful she got me a warehouse job through her friend. While my younger brother Brandon went to Yale, I stacked boxes for $15 an hour. She had stolen my future, and now I held the proof. My heart hammered against my ribs as I drove to my parents' house that Thursday evening. I had been searching for old tax documents in Mom's home office when I stumbled upon the locked drawer. The key was hidden in her jewelry box, a place I had looked as a desperate teenager trying to find answers about why every college said no. Except they hadn't said no. She had said no for them. The dinner was already in progress when I arrived. My father Gregory sat at the head of the table, quiet as always, while my mother Patricia held court. My brother Brandon was there with his wife Sarah, her belly round with their second child. Brandon's tech startup had just secured another round of funding. He was everything I was supposed to be, but never became. I slapped the envelope on the table between the roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. Patricia barely glanced at it. "What's this about, Russell?" "We're eating." "Stanford, Mom. I got into Stanford, you hid the letter." The room went silent. Sarah's fork clattered against her plate. Brandon leaned forward, squinting at the envelope. My father's face went pale. "Oh, that." Patricia dabbed her mouth with her napkin, completely calm. "I did what was best for you." "Best for me? You destroyed my life." "Don't be dramatic." She took a sip of wine. "You weren't ready for college, Russell. You were never as academically inclined as Brandon. College would have broken you. You would have failed out, come home in shame, wasted all that money. That wasn't your decision to make. I'm your mother. Every decision about you was mine to make." Her voice was ice. Brandon needed to be the successful one. "Every family needs a leader, someone who will take care of everyone else when your father and I are gone. That's Brandon. Your role was different. You're the worker, not the thinker. I saved you from humiliation." I stared at her, unable to process the casual cruelty. "I'm done with you. I'm done with this whole family. I'm going to rebuild my life, go back to school, and you'll never control me again." Patricia smiled. It was the smile of someone holding 4 aces. "With what money, sweetheart?" "I'll get loans, work, save up. I don't need anything from you." "Actually, you do need something from me." She folded her hands on the table. "Your grandmother left you a trust fund when she died. Did you know that?" The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "What?" $300,000. She left it specifically for you when you turned 25. That was 6 years ago, Russell. Where do you think that money is?" My mouth went dry. "Grandma left me money?" "She did. And I've been managing it for you. I have power of attorney over the trust. Do you remember signing those papers when Grandma died? You were 19, grieving, barely knew what you were signing. I helped you through all that difficult legal paperwork." I did remember, vaguely. I had been devastated when Grandma died. She was the only person in the family who really saw me, believed in me. Mom had shoved papers in front of me at the lawyer's office, and I had signed them through tears. "You've been stealing from me." "Managing. I've been managing your money. Unfortunately, there have been family expenses over the years. Brandon's business ventures required some capital. Your father had some medical bills. The house needed repairs. The trust has been very helpful for all of us. How much is left?" Her smile widened. "Does it matter? I control it. You want to hire a lawyer? With what money? You make $15 an hour, Russell. You can barely afford your rent. I'll find a lawyer who works on contingency. Try it. You'll find that I've been very careful to document everything legally. Every withdrawal was authorized under my power of attorney. Every dollar was spent on legitimate family expenses. You signed away your rights to that money 13 years ago." Brandon cleared his throat. "Mom did what was best for the family, Russ. That money helped launch my company. It's invested in our family's future." "Your future," I said. "Not mine." "Don't be selfish," Brandon said. "When my company goes public, we'll all benefit. Mom was thinking long-term. I looked at my father. Dad. Say something. Gregory stared at his plate. Your mother handles the finances. That was all he ever said. Your mother handles it. Your mother knows best. Your mother decided. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're a thief. All of you. I'm going to prove it. Good luck, Patricia said, cutting into her chicken. You always were the dumb one in the family. It's probably best you didn't go to college. You never would have made it. I left without another word. In my car, I sat in the darkness, shaking with rage and grief. My entire life had been a lie. Every limitation, every closed door, every moment I felt stupid or inadequate had been manufactured by the woman who was supposed to love me most. But I wasn't done fighting. Not even close. Over the next 3 weeks, I became obsessed. I worked my warehouse shifts like a zombie, then spent every other waking hour gathering evidence. I requested old bank statements from my grandmother's accounts, called the bank that had held the trust, filled out forms, and made copies of everything I could legally obtain. What I found was worse than I imagined. Hidden in my old bedroom closet at my parents' house, during a Sunday visit when they were at Brandon's for dinner, I discovered a cardboard box full of intercepted mail. 12 college acceptance letters, 4 scholarship notifications, job offer letters from companies I had applied to over the years, even letters from a girl I had dated in high school, Amanda, who I thought had ghosted me. She hadn't. She had written me a dozen letters the summer she moved to California. My mother had kept them all. I photographed everything with my phone. Page after page of evidence that Patricia had systematically destroyed every opportunity I had ever had. I found a lawyer named Harold Brennan who agreed to hear my case. He was a small-time attorney who worked out of a strip mall office, but he specialized in elder fraud and financial abuse. This is good, Brennan said, flipping through my printed photographs. This is really good, Russell. Your mother committed fraud. She manipulated a vulnerable teenager into signing away his inheritance, then systematically stole from him. We can build a case. How long will it take? Months, maybe a year. But I think we can recover most of the money. Maybe even get criminal charges filed. I'll need more documentation, though. Do you have access to the actual trust fund statements? The paper trail showing where the money went? My mom keeps all the financial files in her home office. That's where I found the hidden mail. Can you get copies? I still have my key to their house. Brennan hesitated. I didn't hear that. But if documents happen to come into your possession, I could certainly use them. 2 weeks later, I waited until my parents drove to Brandon's house for their weekly family dinner. I didn't go anymore. I wasn't welcome, and I didn't want to be there. I let myself in through the back door, my old house key turning smoothly in the lock. The house smelled the same as it always had, like lemon furniture polish and my mother's expensive perfume. I had lived here for 18 years, but now it felt like enemy territory. In the home office, I found the file cabinet. The financial files were meticulously organized because Patricia was nothing if not thorough. I found the trust fund statements going back 13 years. Every withdrawal was documented. $253,000 gone. Most of it had gone to Brandon's business ventures. Some to my parents' mortgage. Some to a joint investment account in Patricia and Brandon's names. I photographed everything, hands trembling. This was it. This was the proof that would destroy her. I was so focused on the documents that I didn't hear the car pull into the driveway. The front door opened. My mother's voice called out, "I know you're in there, Russell. The police are already on their way." My blood turned to ice. I looked up at the corner of the room and saw the small camera mounted near the ceiling. It was new. She had installed it after our confrontation. She had been waiting for me to do exactly this. The police arrived 6 minutes later. By then, Patricia had worked herself into hysterics. She threw herself into the lead officer's arms, sobbing about her troubled son who had been threatening her for weeks. She showed them text messages on her phone. I didn't recognize half of them. They looked like messages I had sent, but the words were wrong, twisted. She had either faked them or manipulated real messages to sound threatening. "He's been unstable," she wept. "I think he's on drugs. He broke into my house to steal money. He's been talking crazy about some fantasy trust fund. There is no trust fund. His grandmother left everything to charity. The officer looked at me standing in the office, my phone in my hand, surrounded by her financial documents. Sir, I need you to put the phone down and step outside. She's lying. I can prove everything. I have photos of the documents. She stole from me. Sir, phone down now. I was arrested for breaking and entering. Patricia pressed charges and got an emergency restraining order. She told the judge I had threatened violence, that she feared for her safety. The judge granted it immediately. My phone, containing all my evidence, was confiscated as part of the criminal investigation. Patricia's lawyer argued that I had obtained the financial documents illegally, and that my phone contained evidence of harassment. A different judge ordered the phone's contents destroyed to protect Patricia's privacy and financial information. All my evidence, gone in a single stroke. Harold Brennan called me the day after I made bail, using my entire savings account. I can't represent you anymore, Russell. I'm sorry. I can't be associated with a client who has domestic violence accusations and a restraining order. It would destroy my practice. I have to think about my family. She set me up. Everything she said was a lie. I believe you, but it doesn't matter what I believe. Good luck. The line went dead. Within a week, word spread through my workplace. The warehouse manager, who happened to be friends with my mother, called me into his office. I'm going to have to let you go, Russell. We can't have someone with a restraining order working here. It's a liability issue. I didn't do anything wrong. That's for the courts to decide. I'm sorry. Clean out your locker. My landlord, another friend of Patricia's, delivered an eviction notice. 30 days to vacate. Suddenly, my cheap apartment felt like a luxury I couldn't afford without a job. I sat in my empty living room that night, surrounded by boxes, and tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Every move I made to fight back had only tightened the noose around my neck. Patricia had outmaneuvered me at every turn. But then I remembered something. Grandma's estate lawyer. The man who had drafted the trust in the first place. His name was Walter Kingsley. He had to have copies of the original documents. He would know the truth. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Walter Kingsley's office was in an older part of town, in a brick building that had probably been elegant in the 1970s. I found his name on the directory and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The reception area was empty. A bell on the desk said to ring for service. After a moment, an older man emerged from the back office. He was maybe 70, with silver hair and an expensive suit. Can I help you? Mr. Kingsley, my name is Russell. My grandmother was Eleanor Hayes. You handled her estate. His face brightened with recognition. Russell. Of course. Eleanor spoke of you often. I'm so sorry for your loss, though I know it's been many years now. What brings you here? Over the next hour, I told him everything. He listened with growing concern, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, his expression was grave. This is very serious, Russell. If what you're telling me is true, your mother has committed multiple crimes. Elder fraud, forgery, theft. Do you have copies of the original trust documents? That would prove everything. I do. I keep copies of all estate documents for exactly this reason. He stood and went to a file cabinet. After a moment of searching, he pulled out a thick folder. Here we are. Eleanor Hayes, deceased January 2008. He spread the documents across his desk. There it was, in black and white. A trust fund of $320,000, established for me, to be released at age 25. The terms were specific. The money was for my education and establishing my adult life. Patricia was named as trustee only until I reached 25. After that, control should have transferred to me automatically. She never transferred control, I said. She kept it. That's illegal. And look here. He pointed to signatures on various documents. These authorizations for withdrawals. They require your signature as beneficiary once you turned 21. Did you sign these? I looked at the signatures. They looked like mine, but something was off. The loops were wrong. The pressure was different. I don't think so. I don't remember signing any of these. We should have them analyzed by a handwriting expert. I think they're forgeries. He gathered the documents carefully. Russell, I want to help you. Your grandmother was a wonderful woman. She would be devastated to know what Patricia has done. I'll represent you pro bono, in Eleanor's memory. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll file an emergency motion to freeze what's left of the trust fund. Prevent your mother from taking any more. Then we'll pursue criminal charges. Do you know how much remains in the trust? She said there's about $70,000 left. We'll protect it. Then we'll go after her for the money she stole. I have connections with several investigators who can trace where the funds went. We'll build an airtight case. He smiled warmly. Justice is coming, Russell. Finally, we spent another hour going over details. Kingsley had me sign authorizations allowing him to represent me, to access the trust records, to file motions on my behalf. I signed everything he put in front of me, relief flooding through me. Finally, someone believed me. Finally, someone with power and knowledge was on my side. The court date was set for 2 weeks out. An emergency hearing to freeze the trust assets and address the fraud allegations. One more thing, Kingsley said as I was leaving. I'll need copies of your identification, social security card, birth certificate, standard documentation for court filings. Can you bring them by tomorrow? Of course. I'll bring everything. I practically floated out of his office. The nightmare was almost over. 2 days later, I checked the trust fund balance online using the account information Kingsley had given me. The balance was zero. Every penny of the remaining $70,000 had been withdrawn the day before. The authorization signature was mine. The withdrawal had been processed by Walter Kingsley, attorney of record, with proper legal documentation. I called his office. The number was disconnected. I drove to the building. The office was empty. The name had been removed from the door. The building manager told me the space had been rented month to month by a virtual office service. Walter Kingsley had never actually leased it long-term. I sat in my car in the parking lot and tried to breathe. This couldn't be happening. I went to the courthouse and pulled records on Walter Kingsley. What I found made me physically ill. Kingsley and my mother had known each other for over 15 years. He had helped her set up the power of attorney scheme when my grandmother died. They had been working together all along, slowly draining the trust fund. When I started investigating, they accelerated their timeline. The documents I signed in his office weren't authorizations for legal representation. They were authorizations for him to withdraw the remaining funds. I had signed away my own money to the man helping my mother steal from me. I filed a police report. The detective was sympathetic but unhelpful. This is a civil matter, son. You signed the documents. You authorized the withdrawal. If you want to claim fraud, you'll need to hire a lawyer and sue. I can't afford a lawyer. I'm unemployed. I'm being evicted. I'm sorry. There's nothing criminal here that we can pursue. I tried to explain about Patricia, about the conspiracy, about the 13-year scheme. The more I talked, the crazier I sounded. The detective's sympathy turned to skepticism. You're accusing your mother, a respected member of the community, and a licensed attorney of conspiring to steal from you over more than a decade. And your evidence was on a phone that was destroyed. And now you're claiming this lawyer you voluntarily hired stole from you too. Yes, that's exactly what happened. Mr. Hayes, have you considered talking to someone? A therapist, maybe? I left the police station feeling hollowed out. Patricia had won. She had taken everything, and she had made me look insane in the process. That night, Brandon posted on social media about his family's struggle with mental illness. He asked his 10,000 followers to pray for his troubled brother who was having a mental health crisis. The post went viral among his business network. Hundreds of people I didn't know were praying for me, pitying me, seeing me as broken. My few remaining friends started avoiding my calls. The landlord moved up my eviction date, claiming I was disturbing other tenants. I hadn't made a sound. I moved into a weekly rate motel on the edge of town, the kind with peeling paint and doors that didn't quite close right. I had $43 in my bank account. No job, no family, no evidence, no credibility. Patricia had systematically destroyed my entire life, and I couldn't prove any of it. I lay on the sagging motel bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Maybe she was right. Maybe I really was the dumb one. The motel room smelled like cigarettes and defeat. I had been there for 5 days, eating ramen noodles and applying for jobs online. No one called back. A simple background check would show the restraining order and the arrest. I was unemployable. On day 6, my phone rang from an unknown number. Russell? It's Jake Palmer. Jake Palmer. I hadn't heard that name in over a decade. We had been close friends in high school, both outcasts in our own way. Jake had been the nerdy kid who ran the school newspaper. I had been the quiet one who everyone overlooked. Jake, how did you get my number? I saw your brother's post on social media, the one about your mental health crisis. I thought it was strange. You were always the most stable guy I knew. So I did some digging, found your number, thought I'd call. Are you okay? Something in his voice, the simple human concern, broke through my defenses. No, I'm not okay at all. You want to meet up? Get coffee? We met at a diner on the highway. Jake had filled out since high school but still had the same sharp, curious eyes. He was wearing a press badge. Turned out he was an investigative journalist for the regional newspaper. I told him everything, every detail of the past 3 months. He listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes in a small notebook. When I finished, he sat back and let out a low whistle. That's either the most elaborate con I've ever heard, or you've had a psychotic break. I know how it sounds. The thing is, you're not acting like someone who's delusional. You're presenting a logical timeline with specific details. Delusional people usually can't do that. They jump around, contradict themselves. He tapped his pen on the table. I want to investigate this. If even half of what you're saying is true, it's a hell of a story. Give me a week. A week for what? To verify your story. I have access to public records, databases, sources. If this Walter Kingsley and your mother really did this, there will be a paper trail. There's always a paper trail. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. Why would you do this? Because if you're telling the truth, this is the kind of story that wins awards. And because we were friends once, and I remember your grandmother, she was kind to me when nobody else was. If someone stole from her legacy, I want to expose it. Jake worked fast. Over the next week, he called me with updates. He found records of the trust fund and Patricia's power of attorney. He tracked down Walter Kingsley through property records and discovered that Kingsley had bought a beach condo in Florida for cash, right after the final trust withdrawal. He found a pattern going back years. Kingsley and Patricia had done this before to at least 2 other families. Vulnerable elderly people whose estates they had systematically looted. I've got enough for a story, Jake said on Friday evening. A big one. I'm calling it When Mother Doesn't Know Best, a pattern of family theft. It's going to run Sunday in the main section. I interviewed 3 other families who were victims. I have financial records. I have proof of the pattern. Russell, this is going to vindicate you. I sat on the motel bed, phone pressed to my ear, and felt tears streaming down my face. Thank you so much. The article publishes Sunday morning. By Monday, the authorities will have to take this seriously. Criminal investigations. Asset seizures. The works. Your mother and Kingsley are done. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Saturday afternoon, my mother took pills. Not enough to kill herself, but enough to require hospitalization. The dosage was carefully calculated, dangerous enough to be taken seriously, safe enough to survive. She called 911 herself, gasping into the phone that her son had broken into her house, that he had attacked her and forced pills down her throat. She left the back door standing open to make it look like a break-in. Her neighbor, a woman who had been Patricia's friend for 30 years, called the police separately. She swore she had seen my car parked on the street near Patricia's house around the time of the incident. She was lying, but her statement was convincing. By the time the ambulance arrived, Patricia was barely conscious, playing her role perfectly. She was rushed to Memorial Hospital, where they pumped her stomach and admitted her to intensive care. The police issued a warrant for my arrest. They came to the motel Saturday night, kicking in the flimsy door at 11:30. I woke up to flashlights in my face and commands to put my hands where they could see them. Russell Hayes, You're under arrest for attempted murder. What? No, I wasn't anywhere near my mother. I've been here all day. Can anyone verify that? I had been alone in the motel room all day, watching television, eating convenience store sandwiches. No witnesses, no alibi. They handcuffed me and led me out in my sweatpants and t-shirt. The motel manager watched from his office window, shaking his head. At the police station, they showed me photos of Patricia in her hospital bed, tubes in her arms, looking frail and broken. They read her statement. Russell had threatened her for months. He blamed her for his failures. He had finally snapped and tried to kill her. I didn't do this. She's setting me up. That's what they all say, the detective said. By Sunday morning, the story was everywhere. Not Jake's article. That had been killed by his editor at the last minute. You can't publish an exposé about a woman who just survived a murder attempt by her own son. It would look like victim blaming. The legal department shut it down immediately. Instead, the story was about me. Man arrested for attempted matricide. My mugshot was on the news. Brandon did a tearful interview on the local morning show, talking about his troubled brother who had always struggled with anger issues. He asked for prayers for their mother's recovery. Jake called me from jail. I'm so sorry, Russell. My editor killed the story. I tried to argue that the timing was suspicious, but they won't listen. They think publishing it now would make the paper look like we're defending an attempted murderer. She planned this. She knew the article was coming out. This was her preemptive strike. I know, but I can't prove it. Not in time to help you. The bail was set at $200,000. I couldn't make it. I sat in county jail, watching my life disintegrate on the news. Public opinion had already convicted me. I was the ungrateful son who tried to kill his saintly mother. The narrative was set, and no amount of truth could break through it. Patricia recovered quickly. Within 3 days, she was giving interviews from her hospital bed, saying she forgave me, that I needed help, not prison. This made her look even more saintly, and made me look even more guilty. Brandon started legal proceedings to have me declared mentally incompetent. If he succeeded, he could have me institutionalized indefinitely. He could control whatever was left of my life. I was assigned a public defender, an overworked man named Thomas Red, who clearly didn't believe a word I said. He advised me to take a plea deal, plead guilty to assault, do 5 years, get out on good behavior. I'm innocent. The evidence says otherwise. Your mother almost died. Take the deal. I refused. I would rot in jail before I admitted to something I didn't do. Days turned into weeks. I sat in a cell with 3 other men, all of us waiting for trials that might never come. One of my cellmates was Marcus, a 50-year-old man who had been a financial advisor before he got caught embezzling from his clients. You know what they say, Marcus told me one night. Financial crimes always leave paper trails. You can't move money around without records. If your mother really stole from you, if this lawyer really worked with her, there are documents somewhere that prove it. I had the documents. She destroyed them. Then get new ones. Court records, bank records, property transfers. Everything's documented somewhere. You just need someone who knows how to find it. Who would help me? I'm in jail for attempted murder. There are people who specialize in this. Forensic accountants. They testify in criminal cases. Sometimes they work pro bono if the case is interesting enough. He wrote a name on a piece of paper. Diana Walsh. She's the best. She takes on cases for victims sometimes. Worth a try. I had nothing to lose. I wrote Diana Walsh a letter that night, explaining everything in careful detail. I included every fact, every date, every dollar amount I could remember. I sent it through the jail mail system and tried not to hope too much. 3 weeks later, she wrote back. Diana Walsh visited me at the county jail on a Tuesday afternoon. She was in her mid-40s, professionally dressed, carrying a thick briefcase. She sat across from me in the visiting room and opened a folder. I've been reviewing public records related to your case, she said without preamble. Your story checks out. The trust fund existed. The withdrawals happened. Walter Kingsley bought property with cash at suspicious times. Your mother's financial patterns show irregularities. There's something here. I leaned forward. Can you help me? I can testify about the financial evidence. I can't prove you didn't try to hurt your mother, but I can prove she had motive to frame you. She stole a lot of money from you. If you were about to expose that, she had reason to shut you down. Will anyone listen? There's a preliminary hearing next week. Your public defender can call me as a witness. I'll present the financial evidence. Maybe it will be enough to create reasonable doubt. Thomas Red, my public defender, was skeptical but agreed to put Walsh on the stand. He didn't have much else to work with. The preliminary hearing was held in a crowded courtroom. Patricia was there in a wheelchair she didn't need, looking fragile in a pale blue dress. Brandon sat beside her, holding her hand. My father was there too, still silent, still useless. The prosecutor presented Patricia's case first. The pills, the stomach pumping, the statement, the neighbor's testimony. It was damning. Then Walsh took the stand. She walked the court through the trust fund, showing clear evidence of theft. $320,000, reduced to zero over 13 years. Unauthorized withdrawals. Forged signatures. She showed property records for Kingsley's beach condo, purchased with cash 3 days after the final withdrawal. She presented timeline evidence showing Patricia and Kingsley had worked together on multiple similar schemes. Miss Hayes had a clear financial motive to silence her son, Walsh concluded. He was about to expose a 13-year fraud scheme. The timing of her overdose, the day before a major article was set to publish, is highly suspicious. She was brilliant, methodical, unshakable. The prosecutor tried to discredit her, but she had documents for everything. Then Walsh presented something I hadn't expected: analysis of the pills Patricia had taken. She had consulted with a toxicologist. The dosage was carefully calculated, Walsh explained. It was dangerous enough to require hospitalization, but precisely measured to avoid lethality. The pills were taken with food, which slows absorption. Miss Hayes called 911 before taking them, not after. The timeline suggests this was a staged event. She even had testimony from a hospital nurse, obtained through her investigative work. The nurse had overheard Patricia on the phone before the ambulance arrived, conscious and coherent, giving someone instructions about where to place evidence in the house. The prosecutor objected repeatedly. Judge Gerald Hammond sustained most of the objections, cutting Walsh off mid-sentence. He seemed hostile to her testimony, in a way that felt wrong. This is not relevant to the attempted murder charge, Hammond said. The defendant's financial grievances don't excuse violence. Your Honor, I'm establishing motive for the alleged victim to fabricate the incident, Red argued. Overruled. Move on. Walsh tried to present documents showing Hammond and Kingsley had been law school classmates, that they maintained a professional relationship. Hammond stopped her immediately. Counsel, approach the bench. I couldn't hear what was said, but when Red came back, his face was pale. Walsh was removed from the stand. Hammond ruled her testimony inadmissible. Financial evidence was irrelevant to the attempted murder charge. The case would proceed based solely on the physical evidence and witness testimony. Then Hammond did something shocking. He called for a competency hearing. I've reviewed this case extensively, Hammond said. The defendant has made repeated accusations against his mother, multiple attorneys, and now this court. He believes in elaborate conspiracy theories. I'm ordering a psychiatric evaluation to determine if Mr. Hayes is competent to stand trial. Your Honor, I object, Red said. There's no basis for questioning my client's competency. Overruled. I've already arranged for Dr. Stephen Marsh to conduct the evaluation. My stomach dropped. I had never heard of Dr. Stephen Marsh. I had never met with any psychiatrist in jail. Dr. Marsh took the stand. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a superior expression. I evaluated Mr. Hayes extensively during his incarceration. Marsh lied smoothly. He exhibits clear signs of paranoid delusions, persecution complex, and an inability to distinguish reality from fantasy. He believes his mother, his brother, multiple attorneys, and now a judge are all conspiring against him. This level of delusional thinking indicates severe mental illness. In my professional opinion, He's not competent to stand trial and poses a danger to himself and others. I recommend immediate involuntary psychiatric commitment." "I never met you," I said. "This is a lie." "Mr. Hayes, please be quiet," Hammond said. "Your Honor, this is a setup." Judge Hammond and Walter Kingsley were law school classmates. They're part of the same scheme. "This whole hearing is rigged." Hammond's expression didn't change. "Mr. Hayes, your outburst supports Dr. Marsh's evaluation. I'm ruling you mentally incompetent to stand trial. I'm ordering you committed to Fairfield State Psychiatric Hospital for an indefinite period, until such time as you're restored to competency." "You can't do this." "Bailiff, remove the defendant." Red tried to object, but Hammond shut him down. The attempted murder charges were suspended, pending my mental health treatment. I was being committed to a psychiatric facility indefinitely. As the bailiffs grabbed my arms, I saw Patricia's face. She wasn't crying or looking relieved. She was smiling, a small, satisfied smile. She had won. Completely. Brandon was named my legal guardian, giving him complete control over my medical care, my legal rights, my entire existence. The few belongings I had left in the motel were seized and sold to pay for my jail fees. My entire life had been erased. 3 days later, I was transferred to Fairfield State Psychiatric Hospital, a grim facility 200 miles from home. I was placed in the maximum security wing, with patients who had committed violent crimes. I was given medications I didn't need, forced into therapy sessions designed to make me admit I was delusional. Patricia had locked me away where I couldn't hurt her, couldn't expose her, couldn't fight back, and as my legal guardian, Brandon could keep me there forever. I was 32 years old, and my life was over. Fairfield State Psychiatric Hospital was a collection of brick buildings surrounded by chain-link fences topped with razor wire. The maximum security unit where they kept me was for the criminally insane, people who had hurt others during psychotic breaks. I didn't belong there, but no one asked my opinion. The first 2 weeks were hell. They put me on heavy antipsychotic medications that made me feel like I was moving through water. My thoughts were slow, thick. In group therapy, a psychologist named Dr. Raymond kept asking me to admit that my persecution beliefs were delusions. "Your mother didn't steal from you, Russell. That's a story you created to explain your anger toward her." "It's not a story. It's documented fact." "Where is this documentation?" "It was destroyed. She destroyed it." "Do you hear yourself? Everyone who has evidence against you destroys it. Everyone is part of the conspiracy. Don't you think that's unlikely?" By week 6, I had stopped arguing. I took the pills, attended the groups, and said whatever they wanted to hear. I was learning to survive. The night shift nurse was named Amy Thornton. She was in her late 30s, professional, but kind. Unlike the day staff, she actually talked to patients like they were human beings. One night during her rounds, she stopped at my door. "You don't seem like you belong here," she said quietly. "That's because I don't. Tell me your story." I didn't expect her to believe me. But I had nothing else to do, so I told her everything. She listened, without interrupting. Her expression, serious. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "My aunt," she finally said. 5 years ago, she lost everything to a lawyer and his accomplice. They stole her trust fund, left her broke. She died in a nursing home, without a penny. We could never prove the fraud. What was the lawyer's name? Walter Kingsley. The air left my lungs. He did it to others. "I believe you," Amy said, "and I'm going to help you." Over the next 2 weeks, Amy smuggled in my old phone, which she had somehow recovered from police evidence storage through contacts she had. The recording app still worked. We documented everything: the forced medications, the coerced therapy sessions, the fact that I exhibited no actual symptoms of mental illness. Amy got me connected with Jake, my journalist friend. He had never stopped investigating. Together, we planned a coordinated strike. Amy would smuggle out documentation showing my wrongful commitment. Diana Walsh would file federal habeas corpus petition challenging my detention. Jake would publish a comprehensive article with all the evidence simultaneously. We had 2 weeks to gather everything. Walsh needed my signature on legal documents, which Amy would notarize inside the facility. She was a licensed notary, part of her administrative duties. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was fighting back effectively. Then Derek, one of the orderlies, went to Patricia. Derek was a heavy-set man who worked the evening shift. I had never paid much attention to him. Turned out, Patricia had been paying him $500 a week to keep tabs on me. When he noticed Amy spending extra time with me, bringing a phone during night rounds, he reported it to Patricia immediately. Patricia investigated Amy's background. She found the connection to Amy's aunt. She realized what we were planning. She had 72 hours before our coordinated release was scheduled. She worked fast. First, she planted evidence in Amy's locker. Stolen medications from the pharmacy, a patient's wedding ring, a watch. Then she contacted the hospital administrator, an old college friend, and expressed concerns about staff misconduct. She provided anonymous tips about Amy's suspicious behavior. She also installed hidden cameras near my room and doctored the footage. The edited video appeared to show Amy hitting me, forcing pills into my mouth, abusing her position. The timestamps were manipulated to make it look like this had been going on for weeks. Friday morning, state investigators and police raided Fairfield. Amy was arrested at the start of her shift. They searched her locker and found the planted evidence. They reviewed the doctored security footage. Amy was charged with patient abuse, theft, and evidence tampering. My phone was discovered and confiscated. All the recordings were seized. The habeas petition couldn't be filed without my signature, and the documents were taken as evidence. Amy was fired immediately and taken to county jail. That afternoon, Patricia, Brandon, and Dr. Marsh met with the hospital administrators. They presented their case. Russell was even more dangerous than initially believed. He had manipulated a vulnerable nurse into breaking rules for him. This proved he was a skilled manipulator, calculating, more cunning than his diagnosis suggested. Dr. Marsh recommended immediate transfer to Oak Ridge State Hospital, a maximum security forensic psychiatric facility for the criminally insane. Patients there had no privileges, no outside contact, 24-hour surveillance. It was essentially prison disguised as a hospital. Brandon signed the authorization as my guardian. Monday morning, I was shackled and transported 200 miles to Oak Ridge. The facility was even worse than Fairfield. The patients here had committed murders, assaults, horrific crimes during psychotic episodes. I was housed with people who genuinely needed to be locked away. I had no visitors, no phone access, no way to communicate with the outside world. I was given even heavier medications. The staff treated me as dangerous. Any protest or argument was marked in my file as evidence of continued delusions and resistance to treatment. Amy sat in jail, facing 5 years in prison. Jake's story was dead without evidence. Diana Walsh couldn't file anything without a competent client. Patricia had closed every avenue of escape. She had sealed me in completely. I was declared permanently incompetent. Brandon liquidated my few remaining possessions and pocketed the money. Patricia did a television interview about mental illness in families, positioning herself as a brave advocate dealing with a dangerous son. She started a foundation for families dealing with violent, mentally ill relatives. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't destroying my life. I had lost everything. My freedom, my rights, my identity, my future. I was 23 years old when my mother hid that Stanford letter. I was now 32, locked in a psychiatric prison with no hope of release. Every person who tried to help me had been destroyed. Every move I made to fight back had been crushed. At night, in my locked room under flickering fluorescent lights, I wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe I was delusional. Maybe none of this was real. Maybe I really was just crazy. But then I would remember that letter. Stanford. $320,000. 12 other acceptance letters. All the futures my mother had stolen. I wasn't crazy, I was trapped, and I couldn't see any way out. 3 weeks after my transfer to Oak Ridge, Jake Palmer received a letter. It was postmarked the day before Amy's arrest, sent from Fairfield through the regular mail system. I had mailed it during recreation time, a precaution in case everything went wrong. The letter was short. Jake, if you're reading this, our plan failed. One last hope. Grandma had a safe deposit box at First National Bank in Riverside, her hometown. Box number 743. I'm listed as co-holder from when I turned 18. She gave me the key once, but I never used it. The key is hidden in her old Bible, the big one with the leather cover. Brandon stored her belongings in a storage unit after she died. Unit 32 at Safekeep Storage on Route 9. He never cleaned it out. Find the Bible. Find the key. Whatever is in that box might be the only evidence left. Russell. Jake drove to Safekeep Storage that afternoon. He used his press credentials to convince the manager to let him access the unit, claiming he was helping the family with estate matters. The unit was packed with furniture, boxes, and decades of accumulated belongings. It took him 4 hours to find the Bible. It was in a cardboard box marked religious items, wrapped in tissue paper. The key was tucked into the Book of Psalms, a small brass key with the number 743 engraved on it. The next morning, Jake drove to Riverside, 2 hours east. First National Bank was an old building in the town square. He explained to the bank manager that he had authorization to access Eleanor Hayes' safe deposit box on behalf of her grandson Russell, who was currently hospitalized. The manager was suspicious until Jake showed her documentation, my identification papers that Amy had copied, proof of my co-holder status, and a notarized letter that Amy had prepared before her arrest authorizing Jake to act on my behalf. After consulting with the bank's legal department, they allowed access. The safe deposit box contained a leather-bound diary spanning nearly 2 decades of entries. Eleanor's handwriting was neat and careful. Jake started reading and couldn't stop. Entry after entry documented Patricia's abuse of me. Eleanor had noticed everything. The way Patricia dismissed my accomplishments, the way she praised Brandon for things I had done better, the subtle cruelty in her words. Eleanor wrote about finding me crying in the garage after Patricia told me I wasn't smart enough for honors classes. She wrote about the parent-teacher conferences where teachers praised my work, and Patricia changed the subject to Brandon. There were entries about the trust fund. Eleanor had set it up specifically because she knew Patricia would try to control my future. She had wanted to give me independence, a chance to escape. She had tried to make the legal protections ironclad, but she had trusted Patricia to honor the terms. That trust had been misplaced. The box also contained original trust documents, identical to the ones Kingsley had shown me, but with crucial differences. These showed the true terms. Patricia's control was supposed to end when I turned 25. The signatures on the documents Kingsley had shown me were forged. Eleanor had never authorized Patricia's permanent control. There were 12 college acceptance letters, intercepted over the years and somehow recovered by Eleanor. She must have found them in Patricia's papers at some point. She had kept them safe, knowing I would need proof someday. There were photographs of me as a child and teenager, achievements and awards that Patricia had destroyed or hidden. Eleanor had rescued them. School projects, artwork, certificates, evidence of a bright kid who had been systematically crushed. And there were letters. Letters Eleanor had written but never sent to Child Protective Services, to school counselors, to anyone who might have helped. She had been too afraid to send them, worried about tearing the family apart. But she had documented everything, hoping the truth would emerge someday. The final entry was dated 1 week before her death. If Russell is reading this, it means Patricia succeeded in breaking you down. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stop her while I was alive. But I leave you this truth, Russell. You were never the dumb one. You were always the smartest, the kindest, the most capable. Your intelligence was in seeing people clearly, understanding emotions, connecting with others. Patricia called it stupidity because she couldn't understand it. Brandon's intelligence is in numbers and systems, but yours is in humanity. Never let her make you believe you're less than you are. You are extraordinary, and this evidence proves it. Fight back. Win. I love you, Grandma. Jake sat in the bank vault and wept. That evening, he published the article online. It went viral within hours. The scanned diary pages, the acceptance letters, the evidence of Patricia and Kingsley's long-running scheme, the timeline of systematic abuse and fraud. He tied it all together with interviews from other victims, financial documentation, and proof of Judge Hammond's conflicts of interest. By morning, it had been picked up by national news outlets. Federal authorities couldn't ignore it. The FBI opened an investigation into Patricia and Kingsley for wire fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. The state attorney general launched a criminal probe. The state inspector general began investigating Judge Hammond's conduct. The medical board started proceedings against Dr. Marsh for filing false evaluations. Amy's charges were dropped within 48 hours. The evidence against her was examined and found to be fabricated. The hospital settled with her immediately to avoid a massive lawsuit. She sued anyway and won a 7-figure settlement. 4 days after Jake's article published, federal marshals arrested Patricia at her home. They arrested Brandon at his office. They arrested Judge Hammond in his chambers. Walter Kingsley was arrested in his Florida condo and extradited. A federal judge reviewed my case and ordered my immediate release from Oak Ridge. The competency finding was vacated. Brandon's guardianship was terminated. All attempted murder charges were dismissed. I walked out of Oak Ridge State Hospital on a Thursday morning after 4 months of wrongful commitment. Jake was waiting in the parking lot with Amy. The civil lawsuits took 8 months. Patricia's assets were frozen. Brandon's business accounts were seized. Kingsley's properties were confiscated. Combined, the restitution and seized assets exceeded $1.2 million. The criminal trials were faster. Patricia and Brandon were both convicted of conspiracy, fraud, and elder abuse. Patricia got 8 years in federal prison. Brandon got 5. Walter Kingsley received 12 years. Judge Hammond was disbarred and sentenced to 5 years. Dr. Marsh lost his medical license and got 3 years for his role in the fraudulent commitments. The hospital system settled with me for $3 million to avoid a trial over my wrongful commitment. Combined with the restitution from Patricia's assets and the settlements from Kingsley and Hammond, I received a total of $4.7 million. I used the money to start the Eleanor Hayes Foundation, dedicated to helping victims of family financial abuse and reforming psychiatric commitment laws. Amy joined as executive director. Diana Walsh joined our board. We've helped over 200 families recover stolen assets and reformed commitment procedures in 6 states. I also went back to school. At 33, I started college at a state university. I studied psychology and social work, focusing on family systems and abuse dynamics. I graduated with honors at 37. I speak at conferences now, teach workshops, help families navigate the legal system when trust has been weaponized. My father Gregory eventually reached out, apologizing for his silence. He admitted he had known what Patricia was doing but had been too afraid to challenge her. I forgave him, but our relationship is distant. Some damage can't be undone. Jake won a National Journalism Award for his investigation. He wrote a book about the case. I wrote the foreword. Amy and I became close friends, bonded by our shared battle. She's remarried now, to a kind man who treats her like she deserves. I stood up at their wedding. Last month, I visited my grandmother's grave for the first time in years. I brought flowers and her diary. "Thank you," I said to the headstone. "You saved me, Grandma. You always did." I read her final entry again, the part about intelligence being about humanity, not just numbers. She was right. Patricia had tried to define intelligence narrowly, to make me believe I failed by her standards. But real intelligence, the kind that matters, is about connection, empathy, persistence, truth. I thought about all the people who helped me along the way. Jake, who believed me when no one else would. Diana, who fought for financial justice. Amy, who risked everything to help a stranger. Marcus, my cellmate who gave me the crucial advice. Even Harold Brennan, who tried to help before the risks became too high. I survived because I refused to accept Patricia's narrative. She called me the dumb one. She said she would make sure I stayed that way. She tried to lock me away physically and mentally, to erase me completely. But I'm standing here, free and whole. She's in federal prison. The truth won. It took years, cost me almost everything. But the truth won. I started my own therapy practice last year, specializing in family trauma and financial abuse. I help people untangle the psychological damage that comes from being systematically undermined by the people who are supposed to love you. I help them reclaim their sense of self-worth, rebuild their lives, understand that abuse doesn't define them. Every client reminds me of who I was at 31, holding that Stanford letter in my shaking hands, realizing my entire life had been a lie. I helped them see what I finally learned. You are not the person your abuser says you are. You are not the labels they put on you. You are not defined by their limitations. Intelligence comes in many forms. Kindness is intelligence. Empathy is intelligence. Persistence is intelligence. The refusal to become what they tried to make you, that's the highest intelligence of all. Patricia said, I was the dumb one. She was wrong. I was smart enough to survive her, to fight back, to win. And that's smarter than she'll ever be. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been made to feel less than you are by someone who was supposed to support you? Have you had someone in your life try to define you by their limitations rather than your potential? How did you fight back? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might help someone else who's going through it right now. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more stories about resilience and justice. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not defined by what others say about them. Together, we can break the cycle of family abuse and help survivors find their voices. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing that people can fight back and win, even when everything seems lost. Remember, you're never as powerless as they want you to believe. The truth is powerful, and persistence is stronger than any lie. I wish you strength in your own battles, whatever they may be. Keep fighting, keep believing in yourself, and never, ever let anyone make you feel like less than you are. You're not the dumb one. You never were.